Wow,
and more
that's
snow
something.
and colder. It's now down to 34 degrees, I think.
Wow. And how warm was it for you over the weekend?
Well, yesterday it was 85.
Yesterday it was
Oh,
85.
yep, and over the weekend it was in the 90s.
Wow. So what do you think is going
Yeah,
on?
I think this is all so interesting, even if it is a little bit uncomfortable. Uh,
Right.
the fires are burning shit away. This wind is blowing stuff away. We've been so dry, it's unbelievable. I don't know who's going to get this snow if this wind keeps up, but hopefully we'll get some of it.
Right.
You said that Ohio had a tornado last night.
Yeah, the
I
yeah, the town next to me, we had quite, and we had an electrical storm, lightning, thunder for a good 10 hours. I've never been through anything like that.
Right, right. So I'm saying this is a nice climax. I think the mother's
Uh,
shaking it. The mother is shaking it off, and
all
and
right.
it's happening everywhere. Everywhere. There's fires on either side of us that this is probably helping to put out. Um, and there's, California. Look at all the fires in California.
Yeah, that's something there for sure.
Yeah. So I'm saying, in the first part of the book I wrote, Paradise,
Hmm.
it talks about all the weather that Mother Earth just said, I'm done. You guys have done enough damage. We're going to fix this up right now.
Well, I definitely thought this morning after all that lightning, and I was thinking about all that electricity, and I'm like, that's just a total reset for this area here. Um,
Yeah,
that energetically just changes so much, right?
absolutely. Absolutely. And that's what I see is happening. As severe as this looks right now, we're supposed to have 80 degrees in a week.
Right. And we'll probably get the snow. Who knows? Who knows?
Yeah. But
Um,
I think it's so interesting because it's happening everywhere.
right.
No matter who you talk to, where they live, there's oddities in the weather. And
Yes.
and I know our weather has been messed with, but this feels a little bit like the mother just saying, we're going to shake things up right now.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. So
Hey,
so all in all, I think it's all good.
well, it is the good news.
That's right. That's right.
And that's the thing about
Absolutely.
you, JoAnn, is that no matter what's going on in the world, you create good news around it. And that's one of the things I love about you.
Oh, well, I appreciate that. But it's a habit to learn to think like this because we're creating our own realities.
Right. And it's not our
And so,
typical thought process.
right, right. And so, but it could be. It
Hmm.
could be if people would practice it a little bit more. There's always a silver lining. If someone's sitting in the house in the middle of a storm and they're warm and they've got food to cook and a book to read, come on.
Life is
What a
good.
way to slow down and enjoy and be in the moment, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So, like I said, it's a habit to not think positively, and it's no accident that we've been taught that way.
Right.
That keeps us out of our power.
Hmm.
But the more we start finding a silver lining on everything that's going on, the more we're going to see great changes in our world.
I'm glad you brought up silver lining. Get that? Do you like that transition?
I
So
do.
I had quite an interesting day yesterday with my deceased ancestor. Um, and just to give a little backstory, I am studying my ancestral lineage and studying ways to assist in healing and honoring the ancestors that are in spirit on my biological lineage lines. So I'm doing some class work with Dr. Daniel Four, who is he's a psychologist, and I call him an anthropologist. I'm not sure that that's his training necessarily, but he's very interesting and wonderful. So I've told you, JoAnn, a couple stories about an ancestor that lived around 5,500 BC that I call the Bedouin. And yesterday, I've been trying to get an altar together because her energy, she attaches to things and like has drained the battery on my car. And I had all kinds of intense water issues last week. Um, and water's very important to her. I don't know if I had told you, she told me to put my dowsing rods on the altar. Uh,
No.
and dowsing rods, historically were used to find water underground. Um,
Right.
Initially, they were done with a branch, a certain type of wood, mine are metal. So, anyways, that's not what I was going to tell you. I was going to tell you about the silver. So, she she made it very clear. I was asking what she needed on the altar to, that I can honor her, respect her, and where she could feel drawn to, so that she won't drain my battery in my car anymore. So she said she wanted coins. And so I have an issue with change. I never know what to do with it. Like Christine will give people exact change, and she has very little change hanging around. I would come home from work and I'd have pockets full of change, or in my car's full of change. I don't know what it is. I have them. I have coins everywhere. So I put jars up through the house and I just throw my money in these jars. So she tells me to go to this one jar, which is at my nightstand in my bedroom, and there's not a lot in there. So I dumped that out, and she said she wanted mostly the silver, but she wanted the pennies. And she said, you have to wash them first. I'm like, what? Like, who washes coins? Like, and how does one wash coins? And so she led me to how to do that. So with the pennies, it was vinegar and salt. And this is just too funny. So I'm doing, I separate the pennies. I'm washing the pennies in this vinegar and salt solution, and I'm taking them out. And she said that she wanted the older ones. She doesn't want those new pretty ones. And then she proceeded to give me this huge download about coins and how there's a shortage of coins right now, which I recently became aware of because a lot of places around here will not take cash.
Right.
Or if they do, they won't give you change back. They'll just take the paper money, and they say that, they don't have coins. And my bank is asking us to bring our change in and bring coins in. And she's like, don't do it. She said, you can give them the nice, pretty ones. And with the pennies, I can't discern which year it is, but there's a year where they started putting less copper in them and less metals, precious metals, if you will, and they're chintzier, and you can tell, and they look different. They have a different stamp on the back. She's like, you could take those to the bank, but you need to keep those old ones. I have a bunch from the 60s and 70s. She really liked those. So then I get to the silver, which you clean, you line something with foil. You use baking soda to clean silver. It's a very different process. And
Wow.
she didn't want anything to do with the new quarters. Well, I call them the new quarters, but they're like, those with the states on them, or any
Right.
of those. Apparently the nickels are like that too. There's nickels that are newer. I
Right.
only had the older dimes, so she did tell me that there was a more precious dime, but I couldn't discern with the ones I had which one was which, so she got all of them. So actually, it ended up the larger amount of money was in the newer coins that I'll take to the bank, but the older amount are the coins that she wants me to keep and to put on her altar. And she was real excited because there was a euro thrown in there, and I don't ask me how I got a euro. I have no idea. Um, and she's from Europe, well,
Yeah,
Mesopotamia area. So, she's from more of that, part of the world. And so she was very excited about that. So that's my Bedouin story. But I thought it was interesting because she let me know that I have a lot of coins in the house that are very valuable. I shouldn't tell that live, but not very valuable. But she said our older coins are we need to keep them because there's silver and there's precious metals in them, and don't turn them back to
that's
the banks.
that's good information. That's good information.
Yeah,
I see that on some of the storefronts in our little town too about, please have the exact change or blah, 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 I actually think that we're going into a quantum financial system.
right,
So, and so I think it could be very interesting. I love that information that she gave you about hanging on to your silver and your older coins
right.
instead of giving them all back to the banks.
Right. She said, go ahead and give them the pretty shiny ones that are newer. So I I went through a lot of coins going this one, this one, this one, but it was kind of obvious because they're stamped differently. So I could pretty much tell. But she really had a lot to say about the 70s. Something must have changed in the 70s with the minting of coins. But the early 70s she really liked. And I get goosebumps when I say that. So I don't know
That's,
why.
I'm
Um,
writing that down because that's pretty interesting. And if you're getting
Particularly
goosebumps,
with the silver. So now it's before 1976 because of the bicentennial, is what she's telling me now. So
ah, interesting.
after that, there was a shift. Um, and yeah, so something about the Denver Mint, and I don't know what that means. Um,
Oh, wow.
I
Wow.
don't
That's
know
all.
if they make coins in Denver. I have no idea. So
Yeah, I'm sure they do. That's really interesting. That is very interesting.
yeah, she's been quite the character in my life these days, and I'm hopefully today will complete my altar so that um, last last week you weren't on our weekly meditation that we do in another group, and the woman that led the meditation is very powerful. And a couple of seconds into it, she's talking about a waterfall and hearing a waterfall, and I'm like, damn, I'm good. It was all about my ego because I'm like, I can really hear this waterfall, and I usually don't set in that quickly. I mean,
Yeah.
eventually maybe, but and typically I see things and I don't necessarily hear things in meditation. um I'll hear words, but I don't hear sounds like that. So she's going on about this waterfall, and I am like all about it, and then she moves on, but I don't. I still hear the freaking waterfall. And it occurs to me that there's a water falling in my house. Now, this is after earlier that morning, my sprinkler system, my irrigation sprinklers were stuck on. And I didn't really realize, and it was a zone there, I have 6 zones of sprinklers, and it's
Right.
complicated. So it's the zone closest to my house was stuck on for probably about 10 hours. And by the time I realized, didn't shut the water to the sprinkler off. In the meantime, all that water went down and my sump pump was going crazy. And
Oh,
and it didn't burn the motor out, but it was working so hard that the pipe taking the water out split. And so there's this huge pressure of water spraying all over my basement, which was the waterfall. Um,
oh my
Now,
gosh.
this is after my dead car battery every day that I jump, and the mechanics tell me there's nothing draining my battery. And yes, I'm going to replace it. However, I did some ritual work with this ancestor, and I went out Friday and it started right up.
Ah, good,
So
good.
I'm still going to replace the battery just going into the winter. But so
Sure.
anyway, so I brought all that up because I don't think she's messing with me. She's well in spirit, but I think she is very curious and is trying to understand things. And when I first encountered her, she was by a river, and water was very important agriculturally in her culture. And I think she's fascinated with our septic system and our sprinklers and our whole water irrigation system. Um,
Right.
and my
Plus
car.
she pulls some energy off of that too.
Right, right. And again, she's not doing this on purpose, but
Right.
yeah, she needs it for whatever reason, which I don't fully understand yet, but I brought it to my class last week, and he said, well, you got to get the altar so that they have something to attach to, because you don't want them attaching to you either, and I set
Right.
boundaries up with my guides very, very well. I do a good job at that. So, I have a 3-foot perimeter around me, so at least. Um,
Yeah. Very good.
so she'll have dowsing rods, coins in a glass jar. She took me to where the glass jar was that she wanted, and I cleaned that for her. I didn't even know I had it. I kind of remembered once I found it. I'm like, where are you taking me? It was quite an
Wow.
interesting, and I finally had to put an end to it because after I cleaned the money, which was a tedious task, she wanted me to put it out in the sun on one side for an hour and then the other side. And I said, okay, and that's it. Because then she started telling me to get my crystals out. I'm like, no, we're done. I had to set a limit because I would still be running around doing stuff, you know.
Right.
So
Right. Absolutely. Oh, what a grand story. What a what a grand experience.
yeah, it's certainly been interesting. What
Yeah.
kinds of experiences have you had with any relatives in spirit, any ancestors?
You know, they haven't been my own recently. I did a reading for a young lady, and having others come in to me, when people ask me to do a reading for someone who's deceased, I always balk because that's the hardest one, uh, egotistically,
Sure.
because you're scared to death you'll get something wrong or something. But this young lady wanted a reading, and she that was out here for the weekend, and she mentioned her grandmother, and I explained to her how those are really difficult readings to get and all this type of thing. And we're laughing about something, and all of a sudden I know that her grandmother's there laughing.
Ah,
What a grand, it made me cry. It made me
yeah.
cry. It was like, wow. And then I was speaking with a young lady who her son just committed suicide a few weeks ago, and trying to open her up to some of this, so that would help her grieving process. And usually the entities don't come in real quickly after they leave, especially in a kind of a violent leaving.
Mm-hmm.
But he's been there all the time because he's coming right back in. But he had messages for her through I used the cards a little bit, and then he'd say she needs to find her light. She isn't doing what she needs to do right
Wow.
now.
Wow.
And we've talked about dragonflies. Suddenly there's a dragonfly outside the window, and that was talking about her light and stuff. And I talked to her about getting a sign with him, some sort of sign, just tell him what she wants to see, whenever she needs to know that he's around and stuff. So I'm thinking that it may well be the dragonfly. But so it's so amazing to me how everybody's right there to be with us, to help us. All we have to do is ask and be open.
Right,
It
right.
isn't like any of us have special skills. It's that we exercise that muscle a little bit,
Sure,
and
sure.
then we're open to receiving, and we know that we will receive at some level.
Right. That belief. And
Yeah, and I just love that everybody can do that if
I
they
know for
wanted to.
me, what was most difficult was working through the programming that I had around contacting or talking to spirits. Um, you know, being brought up in a strict church environment, Christian church environment, where that was Satan's work, or you don't do
Right.
that. You just don't do that. And so, really, for me, I had to study that and understand where that doctrine came from. That's where a lot of
Yeah.
my research comes in handy for me, because I wanted to understand why my parents and grandparents and, so many generations felt and thought that way. And where did that start? Where did that come from? And so once I did that and looked at that from a more of a historical perspective, I was able to work through those programs and recognize them and be okay and feel safe. Um, and then you helped me tremendously. You're like, well, did you ask for help? No. Well, why not? It's like, duh, like it's so easy. And you're like, just talk to them like we're talking. And
Right.
to me, that was just so different, and unique.
Yeah.
Um,
Absolutely. Well, and when I get so used to it nowadays that I'll say, I talked to this tree today, and to me that's just normal, and that isn't the normal for everybody.
right, right,
You know,
right.
it's like, okay, but there's spirit in everything. There's consciousness in everything.
Mm-hmm.
And whenever I was telling the people I've talked to this weekend, whenever you open up to this, there is so many languages, different languages that are speaking to you, whether it's animals, uh, plants, numbers.
Mm-hmm.
There's so much around us that wants to talk to us.
Absolutely. They're waiting. They've been waiting. It's like, this ancestor is like, finally, somebody wants to do some healing and some work, and she's just so excited and enamored with this world. When I invited her here, because I went to her world first in meditation, and then I invited her here, and it's taken her a while to kind of look around and acclimate, but she's just
Right.
full of excitement and wanting to do this work with me. Um, so so it's
So
pretty
yeah, it is cool. And when I talk about talking to the trees, it came to me, I know I spent a Native American life out here
cool. Hmm.
holding the light. And all of a sudden they said, we're all part of that tribe. We
Yeah,
all agreed to come back now,
I love it.
and we came in different forms. So yeah, it's very interesting if you'll let your mind accept some of this instead of thinking, wow, what a great imagination they've got. Well, that's what makes up our world. Our whole world is imagination.
Right. Illusion, right?
Illusion. Yeah.
What do you think about a meditation now, activation?
Let's do one here. Let's do one. We're gonna kind of combine not only communicating with others that have gone before us or on the other side, but we're going to talk about the chaos that's going on the planet too. So let's take some deep breaths. Let's take some deep, deep heart breaths. And as you do this, see your entire body filled with your heart light and with the light of the Christ, the golden white light of the Christ, along with your heart light. And this is, there's a never-ending supply of this light. And so you feel your body and you let it flow out from you 24/7, because there's no end to it and there's no end to the good it's doing. So take another deep breath as you share your light. And now step into your little orb, your little traveling orb, or onto your dragon, whatever you prefer. And we're going to go up above the earth a little bit, just enough to see what's going on. And when you look at the mother right now, you are seeing, it looks really unfamiliar, but it's like a dust devil, like the Tasmanian devil that was on Bugs Bunny cartoons. But there's this huge whirlwind on this planet right now, and it consists of fires and tornadoes and hurricanes and floods and blizzards and any type of weather. You can, thunder and lightning you can see going through it. It's like a giant hurricane even, you know, but it's a dust devil. It's huge, and it's made of nothing but chaos. And if you look to the outside of that, right above it, you're going to see crowds of entities, ancestors, angels, guides, archangels. This earth is the center of attention right this moment. Nothing is as interesting as what's going on this planet. And we're the lucky ones that got to be here for this. So understand that no matter if this instills a little fear in you, it need not. The mother is simply shaking it off, shaking all the negativity off, all the damage that's been done to her, all the heavy duty, low energy. If there are those who cross over during this time, that was their plan before they came in here. And they'll join those that are watching from the other side, and they all have their hands out to us because they want us to know they're there. They are there. All we have to do is open up and listen. So we're kind of in the crowd watching what's going on. And as we watch, we see this dust devil, this hurricane, this chaos, this cornucopia of chaos lift off the planet. And as it does so, it transmutes to pure God light. And as you look down at our mother, you see such brilliant blue oceans, such green, the colors of the flowers. And once again, you hear laughter. You hear laughter, you hear drumming, you hear music. This is what's happening this very moment. The light has won. The veil is thin. We can talk with and get answers anytime we want them. The moment, no matter what you're seeing, no matter what you're going through, that is simply you're walking through that. You've seen the result. We are in paradise. The light is won. We are at peace. We are in paradise. Seal that. Seal that in your heart. take a moment to see if you recognize anyone around you on the other side, and you may. Someone that's been waiting to speak to you. Take another deep heart breath. Come back to where you were when we started. One more breath. And it is done.
And so it is.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. I love you. Another good episode. Till next time, namaste.
Namaste. I love you.